Hello and welcome to this Necron painting video. In this video we're going to be looking at painting glowy blades for your Necron units. Now we'll be focused on 3 different colour schemes we can pick from. We'll be doing green, blue and red. For the first example we'll start off with green. Now we're going to be doing this on Scorpec Destroys. And you can see here I've got one already built and undercoated with Rune Lord Brass, which is perfect. Now the first thing I'm going to do is base coat all these blades using Corax White. So for every colour scheme we'll be starting off with Corax White, but because we're doing green we'll start with that one first. So what I'm going to do is just get a little bit onto the palette, a little bit of water, make sure it's not too thick and goopy, a little bit more water, that's it. Always key, just try and spin your brush so you get a nice point to it as well. And then we're ready to start applying that to the blade. So I'll start from the top and work my way down. And if you find it's quite streaky or very goopy, just add a bit more water and just keep working. Because of the undercoat, I'll probably want to do a couple of coats of this as well. There we are, I have a couple of coats of Corax White now applied and dry. What we're going to do now is move on to our next colour, which is Tesseract Glow. So again, I'm just going to use my medium layer brush for this. Just going to apply a little bit to the palette. This is more just so I don't overload the brush too much. So I'm just going to dollop something like that, get a nice point, and then we're ready to start applying that to the actual blade. So all I'm going to do is to start from the top and work my way down. Again, having more actual paint on your brush in places when you're pushing it down like here is fine. It's just obviously when you get around other details, that's when you need the point. So actually on the blade itself, around this end, I'm just going to apply a little bit more, just so it's a bit heavier and flows down. Obviously, as I get round closer to these parts, I want a bit more of a point, just so I'm a bit neater. There we are with the Tesseract Glow now applied and dry. What we're going to do now is move on to applying some contrast to add a nice shimmery effect to the blade. We're going to start by using Orc Flesh, and we're going to thin this down with Contrast Medium. We'll do a couple of steps of this as well, just to build up that gradient, and after that we'll use Dark Angel's Green, again thin down with Contrast Medium as well, just add a bit of depth to some of those edges. So first of all, let's start with the Orc Flesh. So I'm going to get a couple of paintbrushes of Contrast Medium like that, and then just one paintbrush of Orc Flesh. Mix it together, just make it a little bit more thinner. Again, try not to overload the brush too much, so just move some of that off, and then we're ready to start doing the shimmer effect. So whatever I do on one side, I'll do the opposite on the other. So on this blade, I'm going to start on here, so it's a bit darker. Move it down like so, and then I'm just going to slowly move my brush away, and then about halfway down carry on again like so. And then when I go on to the opposite side of the blade, I'm going to be doing actually all the actual dark tones here of the Orc Flesh, so it's almost giving you an opposite reflective surface. And again, just moving to that material so it feels a bit more blended like so. There we are, with that first coat of Orc Flesh now dry, we're going to start applying a second coat, but this is only going to be a gradual blend, so it's going to go about halfway across that first coat, just to make sure it adds a bit more depth to some of those areas. As you can see, as I'm applying it, just making that first coat look a little bit darker. So again, you only want to do it about halfway at what you've already done. And if you want a third coat, you're more than welcome to do that. Again, just be more subtle and just take your time with it. There we are with that second coat of Orc Flesh now applied. You can see it started to add a bit more depth. So what we're going to do now is finish off with Dark Angel Green, and I'm just going to keep this on the extremities of those darker zones. Again, you can always do a second coat if you really wanted to, but just add it in like so, and then you can always get some more Contrast Medium just to feather that out a little bit. There we are with that Dark Angel's Green now dry. You can see you've got a nice little blend there on the blade. So what I'm going to do now is move on to doing some highlighting. We're going to start with Ogreen Camo first, just to pick out some of those edges, then finish off with a little bit of white scar, just on some tips here and there, just add a little dot or two. So first of all, let's start with Ogreen Camo. So what I'm going to do is just get a little bit to the palette again, not too much, a little bit of water. Key thing here, obviously with doing any highlighting, is make sure you get a nice point to your brush and have a steady hand as well. So what I'm going to do is start on the edges of the actual blade itself. So all I'm going to do, as we always suggest, is just using the edge of the brush. As you can see, it's just starting to pick that out. Ogreen Camo is really nice for this because it's got a bit of a yellowiness to it as well, so it adds a bit of punch, which really helps complement it with that Tesseract Glow. So just work your way all the way around, move the model if necessary. And then when you get to some of the central parts like around here, you will have to use the point of your brush. So just take your time and hold your breath where necessary. There we are with that Ogreen Camo highlight now done. We're going to move on to White Scar, and we're just going to add little dots here and there, just little blink points, not too much. If you do splodge into some of the recesses, you can always just add a little bit of Dark Angel Green into those recesses. And there we are with the green blade done. We're going to move on to our next one, which is the blue blade. So for this, we've already base coated our blade with Corax white like we did with the first one. So we're going to start with Ethematic blue. We're going to do a couple of coats of this. Then after that, we'll use Talissar blue thinned down with contrast medium. Once that's dry, we're going to do some highlights using Barahoff blue, finishing off with some dots of white scar. But first of all, let's start with that Ethematic blue. So the first thing we're going to do is just dollop a couple of bits like so onto the palette. Not too much. Obviously, we just don't want to overload it too much and get a nice point to the brush, and then we're ready to start doing so. I'm going to do this blade here in blue. So I'll start applying that like so. And with contrast paint, obviously, the more you apply, you get some nice effects from that. So once the first coat's gone on, I'm just going to do a little bit more in places, just so it pulls a bit better. You want to leave this around about half an hour to dry. There we are with that first coat of Ethematic blue dry. We're now add a second coat. And again, like we did on the green, we're just going to slowly build up the blend. So a bit dark on one end and the other end meeting in the middle, so it's getting a bit lighter. And then we'll just do the opposite side on the other part of the blade, like so, a bit darker here. If you want to do a third coat, you're more than welcome. There we are with that second coat now applied and dry. You can see it start to add a bit more of a blend to it. So what I'm going to do now is use Talissar blue to make it a little bit more darker in places. So starting on those darker edges, working your way along. This has been thinned down with contrast medium as well, so it's 2 parts contrast medium to 1 part Talissar blue. There we are, the Talissar blue now dry. What we're going to do now is use Barahoff blue as a highlight around these edges. So just take your time, work your way around, like so. There we are with the Barahoff blue now done. We're going to finish off with a couple of dots of white scar, just on the edges like so, and corners. And there we are with those white scar highlights now done. Our blue blade is finished. So with that remaining blade on there, we're going to do that as a red blade, or dark orange if you like. As you can see, I've already base coated that with Corax white. So the first thing I'm going to do is apply Griffhound orange. We'll do this a couple of times just to build up that colour. After that, we'll be using Blood Angels red. We'll thin this down with contrast medium and do a couple of coats of that just to build up the blend. After that, we'll do some highlighting. First of all, we'll use Fire Dragon Bright, and then we'll finish off with a couple of dots of white scar. But let's start with a Griffhound orange first. So I'll just get a couple of dollops onto my palette. Again, I'm using my medium layer brush here. Again, I don't want to overload the brush too much because I don't want it to pull too much. So with that up, we're now going to start applying that on. So just build it up slowly, let it run in those recesses. Again, make sure you get a nice point when you go around some of these areas. Usually this kind of stuff will be done near the end when you finish most of your model. So obviously having a nice pointy brush means you're not going to get it on all those metallics you've done. Take your time and leave that to dry for around about 30 minutes. There we are with that Griffhound orange now dry. We're going to apply a second coat. Again, we're going to go for a blend here. So I'm going to start on the top here. Just pull that down about so far. And what you can always do is just wipe your brush off a little bit and then just move some down. And again, just work your way like we've done on those other two blades. It's having a bit of a gradient, if you like. So it's getting a bit light in the middle. And then just do the opposite on the other side of the blade. There we are with that second coat of Griffhound orange now done. We're going to move on to applying Blood Angels red. And again, I've just thinned this down with a little bit of contrast medium. This has added a little bit more warmth to this. And again, starting at the top, working our way down, just where those dark areas are, building up slowly. That first coat of Blood Angel red done, we're just going to finish off with a second coat just on the very tips. Just add a bit of depth, like so. Again, just wipe some of that paint off and then just blend that in a little bit. Or use your finger. I'll wipe that as well. There we are, that last coat of Blood Angels red now applied. We're going to start highlighting using Fire Dragon Bright. So just start off with, just use the edge of your brush and work your way around the blade like so. Take your time. When you get to some more of those tricky bits, just use the point of your brush just like around here. Just take your time, hold your breath, and then just work your way around. There we are, with that highlight now done. We're going to just finish off by adding a little bit of white scar to some of the edges and just some of the corners like so. There we are, with that white scar highlight now done. Our red blade is finished. So these are just a couple of examples on how to paint Necron blades. By following the methods but swapping out some of the colours, you can get some really interesting effects that match your colour schemes. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed painting your own Necron blades, and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye.